Welcome back, everyone, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our next session, which is going to be facilitated by our very own Joe Davies, who is Manager for Customer Solutions at NEC. Look, during this period, much has been discussed and much has been made of how people lead through COVID. This period of leadership, managing people, managing business, and managing ourselves as a wider society is absolutely front and centre for so many people. This period of radical change, with the significant demands on business and how everyone's responding to new work conditions, is a real challenge. New ways of engaging, keeping people informed, leading large business environments through this period of change. There's so much to discuss. So today, Joe has a couple of very special guests to discuss leadership of the future. So Joe, over to you.
Okay, welcome to the panel today as we discuss the future of leadership. COVID is impacting lives across the world and continues to disrupt businesses and economies. It's through these uncertain times that even the most resilient and successful leaders are under the spotlight and being tested. So what does this mean for the future of leadership? And what will we see in the post-COVID era? This is what I'm going to be exploring in the panel today. I'm Joe Davies. I'm General Manager for Customer Solutions with NEC Australia. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Pip Marlow and Alison Rowe. Welcome, ladies. Okay, you are leaders in very different yet highly successful businesses. Pip is the CEO of Borean at Salesforce, a global giant and #1 in CRM. And Alison is the CEO of the Australian Energy Foundation, the leading for purpose National Energy Foundation in Australia. Despite that success, as we know, COVID doesn't discriminate. So it brings us all unprecedented change in how we work, we live and we interact. So let's get started. So first of all, to you, Pip. They say that leading through buoyant times is easy, but leading people and organisations through difficult times is less so. So what are the key learnings that you're experiencing through this period?
Thanks so much, Joe, for the question, and certainly for inviting me on the panel and inclusion at your event today. It's really fantastic to be here. I think, it is, leading in buoyant times, I'm not saying is drop dead easy. There's always challenges in your business, but certainly when it is hard, it is much harder. And certainly this last period in time, I think, has been something that I've never had to deal with. And I'm not sure I know many leaders who have led through a global pandemic. That said, I think the one thing that I do think of very deliberately in these tough times is, what do I want to take forward? There's a lot changing, so understanding what doesn't change is really important. And for me, those are two things. One is the purpose of our organisation, and for the Australian New Zealand team that I lead, our purpose is to inspire and enable every organisation in Australia and New Zealand to do well and do good. That's what we want to do. That's why we get out of bed every day, why we love our jobs, is that purpose. And the values that we do that purpose and live that purpose to. So it doesn't matter how tough it is, trust is always our #1 value. People have to trust us when it's, times are easier, but they have to trust us when it's tough. And that's why, we've made decisions in this time, which we've said, look, we're not going to go forward with this event in person because, we can't guarantee the health and safety of our customers, our partners, or my dogs, who you've just met, Archie and Ollie, who do like to show up at an event or two. So you may even get a visual of them later if you're really lucky. So really holding on to your purpose, really holding on to the values, how you live that purpose, that can't change when things go bad, because then they're not really true. They're just, shelfware or labels you've put on things when it's easy to say we're about trust or about customers. But when you have to go through the tough times and you still live to those, that to me is the #1 thing that's got to guide you. And the other side of the balance sheet is, what do you let go? What do you let go? What do you do differently? Because we do need to react and respond differently right now, where maybe you can't see people face to face like you used to do. You can't maybe read the body language in a room like you used to do. So how do you let those things go and create the capabilities that allow you to progress and move forward? And you're not going to get that perfect out of the gate. You're going to make some mistakes. So it is about continuous improvement, constantly checking and adapting and course correcting through that. So I think those are the things I think about right now.
Excellent. What about yourself, Alison?
Yeah, I guess in a crisis, I've gone back to sort of my first career, which was actually in the military. And I thought, how do you actually respond in a really critical way? And the first thing was to actually get, I guess, that sort of steadiness and business continuity going. And I was really surprised how quickly that came to us. So that was really about stabilising. But there was some important work that we couldn't do that was actually going into people's homes. So we had some parts of our organisation that we had increased capacity. So what I actually did was set up a COVID-19 innovation workshop to look at what are all the creative ideas we can do once we start to come out of this. And we've got a project control group that actually manages that COVID innovation hub. And I've had that meeting this morning. Some of the ideas and some of the ways that we're using technology to connect and engage and think of the solutions we're going forward with has been really exciting. So first of all was to stabilise the organisation and then look at innovation really, really quickly. Then it was, for me, it was to sort of accept that speed over what we call elegance. If we think about, sometimes we've gone with the 80-20 rule. I now had to accept as a perfectionist that it was probably going to be 60-40 and that I had to operate at a very different level of speed, except, I guess, a reduction in perfection, but still deliver quality outcomes. So that was being really tricky. I totally agree with Pip about being a for-purpose organisation. That's everything that is connecting you. So, we're really focused around an equitable zero carbon society, and that brings us to sort of the workplace every day. The other part of that for us was owning our role and our story in this crisis. So really, what I said to the team is we actually had to understand, as an energy organisation, as a not-for-profit, the economic side of what was happening here and what our role would be in both helping people who were at home with rising energy costs, how we could help those people, how we could maintain connection to our purpose, and how we could have a conversation in a very different language to try and get traction to build mass and really look at services that we could roll out. So that's been a focus, and making sure that those solutions are targeted to the most vulnerable members in our community. And then I think the last thing is giving the team and the organisation hope that I've got a view which is long-term, because we get very caught in short-term planning cycles. When we're in a crisis, we get very focused around the next month. I needed to still make sure my organisation kept with a vision and a long-term strategic review. So I've been really active around developing some long-term strategic pursuits. They're part of our narrative all the time. It's not just short-term thinking. And I think for me, that's what's built, I guess, confidence and steadiness within our organisation. So that would be the key approaches I've done over this period of time.
A really interesting journey, which is really insightful. I think to add to that though, Alison, what has surprised you and what have you taken away from that period that you see as sustainable change for good in the way you lead?
Yeah, what surprised me is the level of productivity. So I know we've always had these discussions about, what if everyone worked from home? Will our productivity drop? Can we really run a business, remotely? I was probably surprised with the speed of business continuity that we were able to get up as a not-for-profit. We had all of those same business, challenges around, getting people working from home. We have a call centre. We still wanted to provide service to people who needed us. So business continuity and the speed that we're able to do that, and the way that Australians were able to adapt to embracing technology to continue business to keep going has been really, really surprising for me. The other thing, I guess, is even from a board perspective and governance perspective, it's actually been really effective for decision making. So I'm sure Pip can probably, agree with this, that we've got a very close relationship with Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all those applications now, but it's actually really stimulated better decision making at speed. I often worry whether we've missed out on the conversation in the side chats, so that's important to have. But we're really productive in meetings and really effective decision making. And I think they're the sort of key things for me that's been really surprising. And the one thing I will do is be really sort of trying to make sure that we don't, snap back to a culture where we have to have everyone do everything in a very task-oriented way. We remain flexible. Our organisation got a score of 92 on flexibility last year before COVID. We have done an engagement survey since then. It's 94, so there's not much more we can do, but I would never want that to drop, and we need to embrace this new way of working. I can't imagine we're going to go back to an office in the same way.
Excellent. And what about yourself, Pip?
Yeah, it was funny listening to Alison, actually. I've always believed work is a thing you do, not a place you go. I've always been a believer in flexible working and creating environments where that can flourish. It's always surprised me that, more people haven't. What I have loved about the good side of this is exactly what Alison just spoke about. More and more companies are busting the myths about what's possible and can productivity exist and flourish in different ways. So I know, I would typically travel to and from work. I'd have my commute time. I'd be walking to and from customers or to the airport. Quite a lot of dead time in my day or travel time. But now actually, I'm probably more productive than ever in this new environment. In fact, I've had to be careful to build some breaks into my day because actually I didn't at the start. And I think you have to look at people's mental well-being in this work environment where you don't get your natural face-to-face connection physically. It's through a screen. So it's positively surprised me how many companies have adapted so quickly. In fact, I think COVID has brought the future forward. What was going to happen over the next 5 or 10 years has happened over 3 or 4 months. Both the technology shift and the adoption of digital services and digital engagement through to employee work models, that has been brought forward by years because of a burning platform. People who were maybe holding back because they didn't believe in it, they've had to go there because the choice has been gone. They had the burning platform. If they didn't have a burning ambition, they now have a burning platform to do it. So I've been pleasantly surprised how people have done to that. I caveat that by saying we have to think about how we look after our people in this environment. And that's our people are our employees, our customers, our partners, and our community. We do have to be conscious of how we support people and help them work in this different way that does help people's mental and physical well-being. And I think that we're still, I think, refining that, but we can't not do this. So it's not going to be perfect. Alison cracks me up because in some ways I'm the opposite to her. I'm not a perfectionist. I probably need to be a bit more in certain places. I'm like, this is great, just progress, take another step. If we have to go back 1, 2 forward, we'll work this stuff out. Just keep doing that. And it's the blend of people like Alice and I, the diversity of those two things coming together that I think helps organizations move forward and be as successful as possible in this, because nobody asked for this type of crisis. And it started out as a health crisis, and I feel deeply for people who've lost loved ones through this crisis. I have friends who have lost loved ones through this crisis. It has started out as a health crisis. It is now also an economic and social crisis. So it is a multifaceted crisis that we are dealing with through this. And so I want some goodness to come from what has been a pretty crappy time, okay? I want us as a community to have a stronger fabric out of the end of it. I want us to have more diverse workplaces because we've embraced more flexible work environments, which means there's a greater diversity of candidates in it. I want that to be a good upside from that. I want our planet, one of our most important stakeholders, to be in a better place at the end of this. The beautiful pictures you've seen around air quality better, people aren't having to commute as much. Let's figure out how we help our planet make greener choices out the back of this, because we can, and we can be more thoughtful about it. Let's be more thoughtful about the resources, our people, our dollars, our investments. How do we make the best out of what is a pretty tragic circumstance and platform that the whole planet is facing, and use the collective good of amazing people like Alison and Joe, your team and company, to help companies and individuals get through that.
Well, Alison and I are here over in Melbourne, and not so great news today. So let's maybe get a little bit more personal now. So what have you noticed about yourselves in the way that you lead your teams and indeed your organisations? Let's start with you, Pip.
Well, my regrowth has had a lot more challenges. I haven't had a first world problem. I haven't had a manicure and pedicure in like 5 months, and I don't care, because they're not the most important things in my life. My family, my colleagues and friends are, So this has really brought me back to really fundamentals, values, etc., the purpose that Alison spoke about before, remembering what is most important. The other thing that is done for me is I have donated my commute time to my health. So I mostly go for a 6K jog in the morning, or hit a PT a couple of mornings a week with a couple of my neighbours. I have, as I shared earlier, I had shoulder surgery the other day, so I'm a bit on a no exercise for a week or two. But I have actually tried to make something of this also for me and my well-being, because the healthier I am, it's a wonderful analogy, is put your oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others. And I thought through this, the impact of COVID, I needed to be in the best possible shape of my life, mentally and physically, to help my family, my friends, my colleagues, my customers. So I've really tried to do that. Plus all those memes about people leading COVID like a walrus scared the hell out of me. I was like, this is not good for me. I need to do something different. But I joke, it is about taking a whole of mind and body wellness approach, and I've tried to do that. I've also really tried to find a way to get closer to my customers in different ways. Walking a mile in your shoes of your customer has always been something I've been really passionate about. But the things that I've always been able to do for that, I might do a ride along, with a Qantas on a plane and see how the customer uses the technology, or go spend time in a retail customer, seeing how they were using the technology or engaging. Certain things that I would do, I can't do now. So really spending time with customers differently, reaching out to different layers in our customers to understand how, what are the problems? What are the new problems they are facing on the back of COVID? How can we help them now? Really finding ways to build empathy. Those are things I've been trying to do, is engage customers differently, look after my own health and well-being in a different way, and remember what's really most important.
Excellent, thank you. More about yourself, Alison.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's really been about focusing on inclusion. So we often talk about diversity, but this time for me, and leading the organisation remotely, and we've been working from home since March. So it's been really difficult. I did start a draft return to work plan. Obviously that's put on hold, but working for that long has had to have such a significant focus on inclusion. So that would be the first thing as a leader. The other thing I've been thinking about is leading with empathy. So sort of, on this point that Pip was talking about, is the way we're working is really differently. And I would suggest that probably this concept of work-life balance is pretty dead at the moment. And we're moving to sort of a very much work-life integration. And then I've thought about, what does that mean for one of my staff members at home who is, working full-time, homeschooling, trying to deal with this crisis. We absolutely have to look at work-life integration, and we need to really lead with empathy and understand that, and not focus on task, but focus on outcomes and relationships and how we look after people. I love hearing the dogs, Pip. I've got some snacks in my pocket in case mine starts very soon. It was in my previous call. So I've loved meeting so many dogs. That's been totally awesome. But I really think this impact on health and mental health and getting away from a screen is a real issue. I don't think I've ever been as busy in any of my roles in my career that I have been in the last 3 months. The ability, I'm only sort of 3 steps away from my living room. So how do I disconnect? But how do I make sure that my team disconnect in a really different way that we need to break away from work? Because it is right there in home. So it's not like working from home, you're actually living with your work, and it's a really different situation. So we've tried some different things in our team huddles. We have a team huddle. We've had a special session during the day where we've brought your green pet along, and we've got someone who's a specialist in plants, and you bring your plant along and you get some health tips on your plant. Unfortunately, the first week I did that, my plant died, but I haven't told her that. So that didn't work well for me, but it was a great sort of opportunity to reconnect. we have to find different ways. It's not just having a couple of drinks after work on Zoom. It has to be inbuilt into your agenda to connect with your people every day. I've had so many conversations in terms of our customers, our future customers, over technology. It's really interesting when we think about how we run relationships and this concept of, touch and trust. How do you build that digitally? It's been really, really challenging, but I've really embraced it. And as I said, I've never been as busy, but I have to be able to find a way to disconnect. And I have to demonstrate that to every single person in my organisation. I not just talk about it, but demonstrate how I've done that. And, fortunately, it is good if you have a dog, you're forced to go for a walk at some point during the day as well. So actually demonstrating and sharing that with people and what you did on your walk just is leading by example. So for me, it's about inclusion, empathy, and work-life integration.
That's great, thank you. Right,
I love that, Alison. I can't help but just jump in. I was listening to you. You resonated so much with me. I also have a bag of doggy treats here. And the danger is not only are we're working from home, we're sleeping at the office. And that means that sense of absolute deliberateness of time, mindfulness, and breaking from that is something to be more conscious of than ever. Yeah. And sharing across teams, one thing that's been really powerful in our world is sharing across teams things that we're doing for our mental wellness. We had an all hands today. We really tried to do a big call out to our team in Victoria, and a number of the team in Victoria shared some of the things they're doing right now to keep engaged. And one family had done drive-in movie. They sat in the car in the garage and did a drive-through movie, which they projected onto the garage door. So there's some fun, crazy things going on. We're just going to share some of that stuff to help each other out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. At home, I've got a year 12, so you've certainly got to, set an example there as they go through these challenges. So yeah, I want to look to the future now. Hopefully, be brighter than what we're seeing at the moment. As we continue through the uncertain times, as part of the immersion conversation that we're having today is where technology and humanity come together. So what trends are you seeing that will influence the future of leadership and really challenge the status quo that we've experienced of late? Alison, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think for me it is really about this really different concept of work. I just can't imagine that we want to go back to the way that we worked before, but we will really quickly if we allow ourselves to do that. So as leaders of an organisation, we actually have to not allow us to go back to the way we were. That's for me quite important. The role of technology plays a massive role in doing that and enabling that. It is really measuring outcome, valuing personal people. The person that comes to work is the same person who's at home. They're a mum or a dad. They're homeschooling. In valuing every essence of the person that they bring to that workplace, and is so critical. For me, that's the key thing. Is that let's not go back to how we were working before. Let's embrace the new future, because it's going to be so easy to slip back. Once another lockdown comes off and we get back into that having to fly, having to be somewhere else, let's really change this. I was quite pleasantly surprised to hear that a company that I used to work for, and you did, Joe, Fujitsu in Japan, has got a permanent working from home policy now, which I never thought would happen. So we can change, and I really would think that we need to think about, from a net zero point of view, is this different concept of workplaces and work hubs that are close to home, that keep you connected to your community. And I think the concept of an office can become obsolete if we want to change and move to a really sort of smart, efficient city.
Thank you. And Pip, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'll try and build on Alison's comments, because I actually agree with pretty much everything she said. So I'll try and be slightly different. I think customer expectations have changed forever. What customers will be expecting government to do, citizens expecting government to do, customers expecting business to do, consumers expecting companies to do, has been changed forever. So part of what's changed is actually, suddenly people have experienced delivery models, engagement in digital places that they haven't had before, and they never thought they wanted it. But now, actually, why would you ever want to go in your car and line up and do something that you didn't have to do? Yes. So people have thought that that's what's been required, or companies have thought that that's what customers want. But that has been changed forever. I don't think that will go back. I don't think the tension to go back that Alison spoke about will come from there. It'll come from businesses like ours going, well, this is what we used to do, and but I do not believe our customers will let that happen, and I'm happy about that, because actually there is a better way, with no disrespect to great work today. So with that, I think what's therefore changed is the jobs of in order to enable customers in all their forms, citizen, companies, individuals, to do that. The jobs of the future change. So I still want things. I still want the job to be done, and the thing I want still exists, but how I'm prepared to accept that, I will need some people with different skills to deliver it to me. And I'll use a common example, like horse and carriage. I needed people who could drive a horse and carriage. Then I needed mechanics and valet parkers and gas attendants. Sorry, my time in the US, I still call it gas, sorry. But, it's those jobs I still wanted to get from A to B. And then, taxi drivers and Uber drivers, I still have a need for mobility, but how I'm prepared to accept that changes. So I think that the jobs and the skills will need to change. I think one of the biggest things we need to be thinking about right now are the skills for the future. And what's hard about that is when you talk about skills for the future, you don't always know the company and the job of the future. When I was at school, Google didn't exist, Facebook didn't exist, these companies didn't. So, for my kids, and I have a year 2 uni and a year 11, so second last year at school, the companies they'll probably be working for, we haven't even heard of yet. So we've got to move from thinking about education as a school or a degree. It's actually about us being lifelong learners, us having lifelong learning in our DNA, in our company's DNA, in our personal DNA, to help us think about constantly building up skills and credentials that allow us to be relevant in a workforce that will have to operate in a very different dynamic. As companies, I think we have a real responsibility to be investing in our people to help them stay relevant and to do the jobs that we need them to do as this world evolves. So we all have a role to play in that. And I think we have to lead differently. So many leaders have thought about, I can see my team. I can see who comes in at 7, 8 or 9 in the morning. I can see when they leave, because time in the office was, what was maybe valued or measured. We're going to have to look at leading teams where you don't see certain things that make you comfortable maybe as a leader. And by the way, I don't believe in hours is most important. I'm about impact, not activity. If you can get your job done half the time, I say good on you. But I think it's going to require leadership skills where you have people who can build trust in different ways, who can think about accountability models in different ways, who can drive collaboration in different ways. And so not just as lifelong learning about skills and capabilities, it's about how do we become new and better leaders in all of this dynamic, and what's the difference we make in that. And my last comment I'll make on this topic is, so many people say to me, when are we going back to work? We never left. We just go back to the office. You're really asking me when are we going back to the office? You have to ask yourself, why? Why do I need to go to the office? Because if it's for a one-on-one, I can do that here. I believe our physical spaces will become more collaboration spaces. And when do we need what type of people with what skills to come together in a physical environment to collaborate in a way that cannot be achieved, in a digital space, and for mental well-being and human connectivity, which we need, yes? So those are the things I think about for the future.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and it's certainly strange not going into the office, as you said, Borean, but certainly very much lots of work to do. Okay, we're going to go to Q&A now. So if you just bear with me a second, and we'll get moving. Okay, as we have the questions come up, I'm going to make a start. So first one is for you, Pip. Now, I'm getting to know you through this process. I know that you've got high aspirations around Salesforce and ANZ, and customers come first. So during the pandemic, how have you transformed that engagement with your customers? You was fairly new in your role at Salesforce when we entered the COVID period. So how do you make sure that your plans stay on track?
Yeah, look, it is interesting. So I joined the company in October last year. I'm not even a year in the organization. And when you come into jobs like, Alison's and mine, sometimes there's this feeling on your shoulder, not this shoulder because I had surgery on it, maybe this shoulder. You feel like you want to come in, you want to make an impact, and suddenly, before you know it, within a couple of months, you're working from home, you haven't met half the organization, it's a completely different kettle of fish. I have, as I said earlier, I've held on to a couple of things. I actually believe, I'll be, not so much provocative, but I'll share my philosophy. My number one job actually is my people. My number one job is not customer. And I know that is going to be confronting for some people. And it's not about right or wrong. It's just a philosophy. And this is my philosophy. I believe my number one job is to create an environment where our people are invested in and enabled and can do the best work of their life in service of our customers. And if I create that great environment where I get diverse talent, as Alison talked about, then great things will happen with our customers. That's my number one job. And then I believe that's the how to delivering on customer success and great customer outcomes. That said, you need to bring the outside in. So I haven't been able to do some things I would traditionally do. But I think about different things. So earlier today, we had an all hands for our employees, Australia, New Zealand, all hands. We had the CEO of Bunnings, Mike Schneider, on the call. They're a customer of ours. It's a great opportunity to hear from a customer what they're going through on the back of a pandemic. And Bunnings business has been going crazy because I don't know if my husband's buying paint and stuff's happening in this house that I've had on a list for years and it's not got done. Suddenly I'm home and it's getting done. I don't know, but Bunnings is making out really well. But they're a great customer, but I bring that voice in and I share it back with our staff. Give our customers the platform to actually talk directly to 2,000 people. Now, Bunnings is a great customer and a happy customer. I also bring in unhappy customers. So in a couple of weeks' time, we're doing a virtual customer listening tour where we'll have execs from around Australia and New Zealand. We've got a selection of customers coming in from public sector to private sector to not-for-profit. We're also speaking to customers who've left us, who have said, actually, you didn't look after us well enough and we're going elsewhere. What an incredible learning moment for us to understand why it is we lost a customer. So still providing those platforms for learning, for feedback. And, one of the things I believe in, when I role model listening to the good and the bad, it doesn't make it scary. It's not about a witch hunt. It's about a learning opportunity. It makes other people feel like that's an important part of bringing that dynamic in as well. So I really try and do that in as much scalable way as possible. I also try and be very transparent. So very accessible, not just to my team, but to customers and partners. And I probably get unsolicited 20 messages a week through either LinkedIn, Twitter. Somebody's got my email with some good or bad feedback or a suggestion. And I respond, listen to them all and respond to them all. And through being accessible, you'll be amazed what people can tell you. It's amazing what you can hear and learn from that opportunity. And if you take that and share it in a way back with your team, that's not about creating fear or who's to blame. When you hear the question, who did that? I go, what are you really looking for? Somebody to blame? Or I want to know why. Why did this happen? How did it happen? What can I learn from it? What will I do differently next time? Look for the questions you hear around those engagements. And I think that starts to give you a different lens to bring into things.
I think it's a great idea. It'd be really interesting to see how those conversations go. I'll also have to remind my husband, I'm not seeing very much DIY going on around my place, so my list is still quite long. The question for you, Alison. Now, I've known you for a number of years now, as you say, we've worked together before, and I know you're passionate and highly motivated about creating a sustainable future, and climate change is therefore a top agenda item. So what are your thoughts on a potential of a zero recovery smart approach for businesses as we move out of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that remember that there's been two reasons why Australians have been asked to wear facial masks this year. And the first one was the bushfires, which is actually still in 2020. It's really hard to go back to that and think about the fact that's how we started 2020. But I think what I'm sort of, and we're going to be putting them on mandatory at midnight tonight. But what's going to happen, I think, I hope, is that many people have felt a very different connection to their local community. And I don't know, Pip, when you're walking and you're going for your run, you're actually saying hello to more people in your neighbourhood. And I think there's this massive reconnection back into your local community, which for a society is a really important part of a sustainability strategy. We have to continue that reconnection. We have to all personally take ownership within our community, and whether it's the people that we live with and care for, or whether it's where our business is, when our business can be everywhere, every part of that community is something we need to take as a value and protect going forward, and not go back to how we used to operate, where we wouldn't even say hello to somebody. So climate change cannot be the poor cousin out of this. We need to remember the start to this year and the horrific bushfires. The role of technology going forward around sustainability is massive. I think about, Australia can be the renewable energy powerhouse of the world if we want to be. We have not figured out a way how to tax the sun or the wind yet. So we have natural free resources in this country that we can really think about how we harness and roll out renewable energy at large scale. The role of technology in terms of digitising our energy grid is massive opportunity. At the moment, we've got quite an old grid running across down the east of of Australia, that is really like, I guess, trying to run Netflix on a fax machine. So the role of technology in integrating a whole range of different energy projects into a very sort of digitised smart grid is a massive opportunity that can really transform our nation. The thinking about how we export hydrogen and start to think about the technology that's required there is a massive opportunity. And I think the other one that Pip mentioned about transport. So, we went from the horse and cart to the mechanic. The mechanic's probably not going to be an industry for the future. It's going to be computers and, thinking about electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. Those would be things that are going to be a massive opportunity for technology. Bringing back that heart and soul of our local community with the technology solutions of the future is something we must embrace and tackle climate change, and we just can't leave it to be the poor cousin here.
No, I totally agree. And even, I think you touched on it earlier on in the session, Pip, when you see the images around some of the, the clear canals in Venice, having been there before, and seen the situation that was there, it's truly remarkable. And in fact, even the work that we've got here going on at NEC, we're sponsoring a town in New South Wales who was devastated through the bushfires, to really help that community get back on its feet, helping the children in the local school, and helping with some IT equipment, and just generally engaging and help them build back up. It's devastating to think that people are still living in their cars all these months after, and it no longer actually making the news headlines anymore. So really difficult. Listen, thank you so much for your time, ladies. I think you've shared a lot of your experiences, your insights and your wisdom. It's certainly food for thought as I continue my own leadership journey. And and thank you to the audience today. Welcome back, Dave.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jo. Thank you, Alison, and thank you, Pip, so much for what is it's such a thought-provoking panel discussion. 3 incredibly talented leaders giving so much of themselves and so many insights today. So we really appreciate that. Right now, we're just going to pop up a poll. We're doing this after each presentation or each panel discussion, just on 3 quick questions. So the poll's about to appear now. And that poll is, did this presentation add value to you today? 0 to 5. I'm now more informed about the subject matter, 0 to 5, and I'd like to know more about this particular subject. So I'll come back to that poll in just a short moment. For people that would like to perhaps have a continued conversation with a number of the panel members here, I'm not sure if both Alison, Pip, and certainly Jo can make it into the virtual lounge, but certainly at least 2 out of 3 of them will be in a moment. Just all you need to do is go up to the toolbar, click on the networking lounge and click on meet the speakers, and they will be there to perhaps for the next 10 to 15 minutes to share further insights. In a moment, we're going to introduce in another Zoom room, so you just need to shut this one down and open up again back in this auditorium environment. Mayuka Tadawaki, who is our expert from NEC Japan, to present all things 5G, a new horizon awaits. So she'll be online in a moment. So let's take a look at the poll. Let's see how people viewed that session. Joe's audio was in and out a little bit, so that was a little bit tricky. But look, overall, did the presentation add value to you today? The vast majority, nearly 90% of people said it absolutely did. I'm now more informed about the subject matter. Again, lots of 4s and 5s there, so that's wonderful. And knowing more about the subject matter, certainly the majority would like to know more, so there's perhaps a couple more questions that might be asked in the virtual lounge after this. Again, thank you all three of you for your time, particularly Alison and Pip for giving up your time. It was really insightful. Thank you, Joe, for facilitating that. Just don't forget, if anyone wants to dive into the virtual exhibition hall, you can do that. Just click on the toolbar up the top, go into any one of those really interesting sites that are there, health, education, value-add society, and so forth. It's all available to you. We'll talk to you in a moment in the next live session. Bye for now.